On the 100th proposal, my girlfriend wanted to humiliate me, but later she was the one begging me to say yes. My name is Ethan Miller, and I've learned the hard way that some things are simply too broken to fix. You might think this story is about a man and a woman, about love, about commitment, but it's really about what happens when trust is shattered and pride becomes the only thing that keeps you standing. Trust me, you'll regret skipping this story. So before you sit back and listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Ethan's Way. Now get in the mood to listen to this story because it might be the ultimate sweet revenge. Camille and I had been through a lot, maybe too much. Our relationship had started out like a fairy tale, all passion and promise. But somewhere along the way, it turned into a game. Oh, game I was losing. I'd asked her to marry me twice before, and both times she'd turned me down with the same cold, indifferent smile that made my heart ache in places I didn't even know existed. But I kept coming back. I always thought this time will be different. It wasn't, but that's what you do when you love someone, right? You keep trying, keep hoping. I'd given Camille everything, my heart, my future, my time, and yet there I was once again standing at the edge of a cliff, asking her for something she had no intention of ever giving. The 100th proposal was supposed to be different. I had it all planned out. It was going to be grand romantic. A moment to remember, I thought. A way to show her just how far I'd come, how much I was willing to sacrifice for her. But in hindsight, I see it now. I see it all too clearly that proposal wasn't for her. It was for me. It was my last attempt to save something that had been lost a long time ago. We were at the rooftop of the hotel where we'd spent our first anniversary. The city lights twinkled in the distance and the wind played with her hair. Everything was set up perfectly, just the way I'd envisioned it. I had rehearsed my words over and over again in my head. I was ready. Camille, I began, my voice steady despite the nervous energy swirling inside me. I know we've had our ups and downs, but I still believe in us. I believe in you, and I believe in the future we can have together. So for the 100th time, will you marry me? I waited, holding my breath, but instead of the warm, joyful response I'd hoped for, Camille's lips curled into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was the kind of smile that made you feel like a fool for even asking. She looked at the ring, then at me, her voice soft but cutting. Ethan, why do you keep doing this to yourself? I've told you 1,000 times before. I'm not ready for this. I don't need this kind of commitment right now. My heart sank. I laughed, but it wasn't real. You're kidding, right? I'm standing here laying my soul bare, and you're telling me I'm wasting my time. She didn't respond at first, just shook her head, as if she was the one who'd been hurt, not me. I just think you're rushing things. You're pressuring me. I stood there frozen. Her words hit harder than any slap ever could. Pressure. I wasn't pressuring her. I was asking for her heart, her future, but it didn't matter. Her gaze flicked to the ring and then back to me. There was a slight smirk on her lips. You really thought I would say yes this time? After everything that's happened, maybe you should stop fooling yourself. The words stung like ice water in my veins, freezing me in place. I had put everything on the line, my love, my pride, my future, and she had just ripped it away, in front of everyone. I didn't say anything else. What was there left to say? I had been humiliated again. And yet in that moment I realized something. I wasn't angry, not at her, not even at myself. I was just tired of giving pieces of myself to someone who couldn't appreciate them. The crowd around us started to murmur, but I didn't care. I took a deep breath, forcing the sting of rejection to stay hidden beneath the surface. I didn't need her approval anymore. I had my own worth, even if I couldn't see it just yet. I didn't even wait for her to say anything else. I turned around and walked away from the woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with, and made a vow to myself that I would never ever be the fool again. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to plead. From this moment on, it was going to be about me, about rebuilding myself. And if Camille ever came crawling back, it wouldn't be for the reason she thought. But now, in the aftermath of the 100th proposal, I was forced to confront the brutal truth. Hope was the trap I had fallen into. It was a trap I built myself brick by brick, with every whispered promise, every moment of doubt, every quiet reassured thought that this time she'll get it. Looking back, it wasn't just the proposal that hurt. Sure, her rejection stung like a fresh wound, but it wasn't just the denial of a marriage proposal. It was the slow unraveling of everything we'd built together or thought we had. It was the realization that Camille had never truly seen me, not the way I'd wanted her to. We'd been together for almost 5 years, yet each time I'd asked her, reasons for rejection changed. One minute it was, I'm not ready. The next, I need to focus on my career. Always something, always an excuse. But deep down, I began to realize it wasn't about timing or fear of commitment. It was about control. Camille wanted to control the narrative. She wanted to keep me dangling, desperate for her approval, while she played the role of the elusive, untouchable prize. As I walked away from her that night, I couldn't help but wonder, how long had I been living in a lie? How many times had I convinced myself that the next proposal would be the one? How many moments had I let slip by believing that she'd change, that she'd love me enough to want this life with me? I sat in the car, the sound of my own breath filling the space as I drove aimlessly through the streets. It was late, the city lights flickering against the windows, but it felt like everything around me was fading away. The trap was real. I had let myself believe in her promises, in her smiles, in the half-hearted affection she showed when it suited her. I had fallen for the illusion of her love. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was disillusioned. The days after the proposal were a blur. I went to work, did my usual routine, but something had shifted in me. I couldn't go back to pretending everything was fine. I couldn't keep waiting for a woman who had made it clear she didn't want me. No more waiting, no more excuses. But despite everything, I still found myself looking at my phone, hoping for a text from her. It was pathetic, I know, but hope had a way of keeping its claws in you, even when you knew better, even when you told yourself you were done. I remember checking my messages a few days later, just as I was about to close the app. There it was. Camille's name blinking at me. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but I was curious. I had to know what she had to say after everything that had happened. Ethan, we need to talk. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we meet? Just those few words, and suddenly I was back where I started. That familiar hope bubbled up in my chest, and for a split second I thought maybe this time. I pushed the thought away. I was done being that guy, done chasing someone who couldn't even meet me halfway. So I ignored her message just like I'd promised myself. For once, I wouldn't be the one running after her. But as the days passed, her texts kept coming. At first they were small, simple, apologies, pleas for a chance to talk. Then the tone shifted, more intense, more desperate. I made a mistake, she said. I didn't realize how much you meant to me until it was too late. It was almost comical. How many times had I heard this? How many times had I believed it? But that was the thing about hope. It made you second-guess your instincts. It made you believe even when every part of you screamed to walk away. One afternoon, I decided to do something I never thought I would. I blocked her number. It was painful to cut off someone who had been such a huge part of my life, but it was necessary. I had to do this for me. I had to stop believing in her promises and start believing in myself again. And yet, just a few days later, I got an unexpected call. Not from Camille, but from her best friend, Sarah. I hesitated before picking up the phone. She's not giving up on you, you know? Sarah said, her voice low and filled with concern. She's sorry, Ethan. She really is. She just doesn't know how to fix it. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. How many times can you apologize for the same thing before it loses its meaning? Sarah was quiet for a moment before answering. She's begging you to listen. She needs you to hear her out. It was a tempting offer. I could feel the old familiar tug in my chest, the part of me that still wanted to believe. But deep down, I knew better. No, I said firm this time. I'm done. As I hung up the phone, I felt a strange sense of peace. The emotional weight that had been dragging me down for so long was lifting. I had finally made the decision. It wasn't just about rejecting Camille. It was about rejecting the version of myself who would keep running after someone who didn't care. The trap was broken, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. You might think that after blocking Camille and making the hard decision to move on, things would get easier. But the truth is, when you've given so much of yourself to someone, pulling away is never as simple as just walking away. Every text, every memory, every glance at my phone made me wonder if I was making the right choice. It felt like I was leaving behind a part of myself, a part I wasn't sure I was ready to say goodbye to. But that's the thing about hope, isn't it? It doesn't just disappear because you choose to ignore it. It nags at you subtly until you convince yourself that maybe you should give them one last chance. It wasn't long before Camille reached out again, and this time she sounded different. Not desperate like before, but genuine. It was in her words, the way she spoke. She said she had been doing a lot of thinking and was ready to talk. No games, no manipulation. At first I didn't want to get my hopes up again, but curiosity got the better of me. We arranged to meet at the same cafe where we had our first date, a place that until that moment still carried the sweet memories of how it all started. When I walked in, I saw Camille sitting there, a cup of coffee in front of her. She looked different. She wasn't dressed in the usual sleek outfit she wore when we were together. There was something softer about her, something stripped down, like she was no longer trying to impress me or hide behind her usual defenses. "Ethan," she said softly, almost as if testing my reaction. "I didn't expect you to come." I didn't respond immediately. I just sat down across from her, watching her closely. "Why did you ask me to meet here?" I asked, my voice steady but full of questions. Her eyes flickered with emotion, but she stayed calm. "I want to make things right. I want to apologize for everything. I've been selfish. I used you, and I didn't realize how much that hurt you until I saw the way you walked away, the way you stopped caring. It was a wake-up call." Her words hit harder than I expected. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to, but I couldn't forget the history we had. I couldn't forget how many times I had given her chances only for her to rip them away when it suited her. This wasn't some innocent mistake. This was a pattern. I leaned back in my chair, my hands clenched around my coffee cup. "So what now? You expect me to just forgive you and pick up where we left off?" She looked at me with a mixture of regret and hope, like she had finally realized that what she had was real. But I wasn't sure I could say the same. "No, I don't expect you to forgive me just like that," she said, the vulnerability in her voice more evident than I'd ever heard. "But I want to try. I want us to try again. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking for it." I felt the weight of her words sink in. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But after everything that had happened, could I really go back to the woman who had humiliated me so many times before just because she decided to play nice for once? Part of me longed for it, the sense of belonging, the comfort of having her back in my life. But I had changed. I wasn't the same guy who would blindly accept her apologies. I had grown, evolved, become someone who demanded more than empty promises and half-hearted affection. For a moment I sat in silence, thinking about the woman I had once been willing to marry. I thought about the times I had asked for her love and how each time it had been given to me in small half-finished doses. And then it hit me. The reason I was sitting there wasn't because I wanted her back. It was because I needed to decide whether to continue letting her dictate the terms of my happiness or finally stand up and take control of my own future. "Camille," I said, my voice firm but not unkind, "I don't need you to apologize. What I need is for you to understand that this isn't about me forgiving you. It's about whether or not you're willing to respect the fact that I've changed, that I'm not the same person who will keep giving, hoping you'll see my worth." She looked at me, her eyes searching mine for some sign of reassurance. But there was none. Not from me, not anymore. "I can't just forget everything, Camille. I can't just forgive you because you said the right things this time. The truth is, I've already made my choice." I stood up, leaving her there at the table, her eyes still locked on me. But this time, there was no more hope, no more illusions. I was walking away for good. I thought I was done with Camille. I had walked away, told myself it was over, and yet there was still this lingering, nagging feeling deep down, like a part of me hadn't fully let go, like something wasn't finished. That's when I started to pay attention. It started with the small things, the little cracks that had been hidden under the surface. Camille had always been charming, always had a way of getting people to like her, to trust her. But that charm was her mask, and as I watched her from a distance, I began to see what was underneath it. I first noticed the strange texts, the ones she sent to people I didn't recognize. At first I brushed it off. She had her life, I had mine. We weren't together anymore, and it wasn't my place to pry. But when I saw the name of one of her old friends flash up on her phone, a name I hadn't heard in years, I felt a sudden discomfort crawl through my chest. A few days later, I ran into one of Camille's colleagues, Derek, in a coffee shop. He was a good guy, always respectful, always friendly. But when he saw me, his eyes darted nervously. It was subtle, but I caught it. A fleeting glance, a quick avoidance of eye contact. I thought nothing of it at first, but when he started talking about Camille, I could see it. "She's been going through a lot, man." Derek said, his voice low. "But she'll bounce back. She always does. I raised an eyebrow, confused. What do you mean, is everything okay with her? Derek hesitated, a long silence hanging between us. Finally, he sighed and leaned in closer. Look, I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but you need to know. Camille's been playing both sides, Ethan. She's been talking about you, but she's also been seeing someone else. I don't know how serious it is, but I think you should know. The words hit me like a freight train. Camille. Seeing someone else, I couldn't believe it. The very person who had told me time and time again how much she loved me, how she wanted a future with me, had been seeing someone else behind my back. I should have been angry, should have felt betrayed, but I just felt numb. How had I not seen this? How had I been so blind to the lies she'd been telling me? Had I really been so desperate for her approval that I'd overlooked everything else? I walked away from Derek that day with my mind racing. The lies, the deception, they were all starting to piece together. The messages, the secret meetings, the evasions. Camille hadn't been the victim of my rejection. I had been the fool. I had been the one who let her play me, who let her control the narrative. And now I had to face the truth. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, had been betraying me all along. But I wasn't going to confront her right away. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing my anger. I'd learned something important in the last few weeks: patience. If I was going to take back control of this situation, I needed to be strategic. I needed to let Camille think she was winning, let her believe she could still play her games. But I knew better now. I wasn't going to let her destroy me again. For the next few days, I kept my distance. Camille sent more texts, more calls, but I ignored them. I let her stew in her own guilt, knowing full well she was wondering when I would finally break. But I didn't. I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me struggle. I wasn't going to be the man who begged for her love again. Instead, I focused on myself. I kept working on my business. I spent time with my friends, the people who actually supported me. And bit by bit, I began to rebuild the parts of me that Camille had chipped away over the years. I realized I didn't need her to be happy. I didn't need her to validate me. I had something far more important: my own self-respect. Then, just as I was starting to feel stronger, Camille came to me. She showed up at my apartment looking disheveled and desperate, as if she had just come from a war zone. Her eyes were bloodshot, her makeup smeared. She looked like a shell of the person I once knew. "Ethan, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice shaking. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, waiting. "About what, Camille?" She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I messed up. I made a huge mistake, and now I'm paying for it. I didn't mean for things to get this out of hand, but I need you to understand. This other guy, he's not what I thought he was. I was just trying to feel something again, to make myself feel alive. But it was all a lie." I didn't say anything at first. I wanted to hear it all, every last word, because in that moment I realized I wasn't here for her apologies. I wasn't here for the drama, for the guilt trip, or the tears. I was here for me. "I don't want your apology, Camille," I finally said, my voice cold and unwavering. "What I want is for you to realize that this isn't about me forgiving you. It's about you understanding that I'm done. I don't need you anymore." Her face crumbled at my words, and for a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. But I quickly shut that part of me down. This wasn't about pity. This was about me reclaiming what I had lost: my dignity, my pride, and my future. The days after Camille left were both agonizing and freeing. At first, I wasn't sure what to feel. Was I relieved, or was I just numb? For years, I'd thought that if I could just get Camille to see me, to see the man I was beneath the surface, everything would be fine. But now, after everything had fallen apart, I realized how much of myself I had sacrificed just to keep her in my life. I wasn't just grieving the loss of Camille. I was grieving the person I'd become in the process. The version of me who was constantly second-guessing himself, doubting his worth, and running after someone who didn't even know how to love me properly. The man who thought his happiness was tied to someone else. It took me a long time to understand that I wasn't just losing Camille. I was losing a version of myself that wasn't even real. And that's when the real work began. The first step toward change was simple. I had to stop. I had to stop chasing after her, stop obsessing over the what-ifs, and stop letting myself drown in the past. I deleted her number from my phone. I blocked her on social media. I told myself it was over, even when my heart begged for a different answer. I spent days avoiding places we used to go together, avoiding memories that would pull me back into her orbit. At first it was agonizing. Every time I thought of her, a flood of memories would rush in: how she smiled when she was happy, How we used to laugh about the little things, how despite everything I still loved her. It felt like a hole in my chest that nothing could fill. But as the days turned into weeks, the hole began to close. It wasn't something that happened overnight, but slowly something changed inside me. I realized that I had to focus on me. I couldn't keep wasting my life on someone who had never fully seen me, not in the way I deserved to be seen. I started with the basics, working out. It had been a while since I'd taken care of myself, since I'd felt strong and alive. At first it was hard. My body wasn't used to the strain, and my mind kept wandering back to Camille, to the pain she'd caused. But as I pushed myself harder day after day, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: pride. Pride in what I was accomplishing, pride in the man I was becoming. It wasn't about getting back at her or showing her that I was better off without her. It was about rebuilding the person I had neglected for so long. I also focused on my career. Camille had always been the center of my world. She'd demanded attention, affection, and time, so much time. But now, without her constant pull on my life, I had room to focus on what really mattered: my work, my ambitions, my dreams. I threw myself into my business like never before, determined to prove to myself that I didn't need her to succeed. Slowly but surely, things started to fall into place. It wasn't just about the physical or professional aspects of my life. The real change was happening deep within me. I began to see things clearly: how much of my happiness had been dependent on Camille's approval, how much of my worth had been defined by her love, and I started to wonder why I'd ever let that happen in the first place. I began spending time with friends who had always supported me, the ones who didn't judge me for loving Camille, but who never stopped reminding me of my worth. They told me I was better than the way I'd been treated. They reminded me that I had a future, one that didn't involve Camille, one that was full of possibilities. Their belief in me was the spark I needed to keep going. I also started dating again, not seriously, but casually. Nothing like what I had with Camille. I wasn't looking for love, at least not yet, but it was a reminder that there was more to life than one person. It was a reminder that I could be loved, and I didn't have to beg for it. The transformation wasn't just external, it was internal. I learned how to appreciate my own company, how to enjoy being alone without feeling like something was missing. And as I grew stronger, I realized something else: I didn't need Camille. Not anymore. I had learned to be whole without her, but that didn't mean the past didn't haunt me. The question lingered: what would I do if Camille came back, if she tried to win me over again? Could I trust her? Could I even love her again after everything she'd put me through? A few weeks later, I found myself in a coffee shop trying to lose myself in a book. But then I saw her, Camille. She walked through the door, her eyes searching the room as if she were looking for me. When she saw me, she froze. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't expected to see me, and she definitely hadn't expected to see me so different. She walked toward me, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel that old rush of emotions. No longing, no pain, just a cool, calm distance. "Ethan," she said, her voice soft, almost tentative. "I didn't expect to find you here." I looked up from my book, meeting her eyes for the first time in weeks. "Camille." I've been thinking a lot about everything she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I know I've hurt you, and I can't undo the damage I've done, but I need you to know. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." Her words were sincere, but they didn't move me. Not like they used to. I could see the desperation in her eyes, the guilt, but I wasn't the same person who would fall for it again. "I don't need your apology, Camille," I said, my voice steady. "What I need is for you to understand that I'm done. I've moved on, and I'm not coming back to a version of us that doesn't exist anymore." Her eyes searched mine, hoping for a crack in the armor I had built, but there was none. "I just wanted you to know how much I regret everything," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. I nodded, standing up. "I'm glad you've come to terms with it, but I can't be the one to heal your guilt. I'm not your savior." I walked away, and this time there was no longing in my heart, no sorrow, only the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had reclaimed myself. It had been weeks since I'd seen Camille, and I'd made peace with the idea of her being part of my past. I had settled into my new routine. My business was flourishing, I was reconnecting with old friends, and I was starting to enjoy the peace that came with not having to worry about someone else's emotions, not having to adjust my entire life for someone who wasn't even capable of meeting me halfway. But just when I thought I had moved on, Camille showed up again. It happened one evening, a few days after I had attended an event for work. I was back at my apartment relaxing after a long day when my doorbell rang. I opened the door without thinking much about it, expecting a delivery, or maybe a neighbor asking for something, but standing there looking at me like she wasn't sure whether to stay or leave was Camille. For a moment, neither of us spoke. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. She looked different. Her usual sleek, put-together appearance was gone. She was wearing casual clothes, no makeup, her eyes red as if she'd been crying. I felt a flicker of something, maybe guilt, maybe confusion, but I quickly suppressed it. She was the one who had hurt me. She had abandoned me. The truth was, I didn't owe her anything. "Ethan," she said softly as if unsure of how to begin. "Can we talk?" I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "About what, Camille?" Her face fell for a moment before she regained her composure. She took a deep breath, then stepped inside past me without waiting for an invitation. I didn't stop her. I didn't have to. She was already in my space, invading the small amount of peace I had finally managed to create for myself. "I've made a lot of mistakes," she began, her voice shaking. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of soul searching." She paused, looking at me with that familiar mixture of sadness and guilt. "I know I've hurt you, and I know I've destroyed everything between us, but I need you to understand. I didn't know how to love you, Ethan. I didn't know how to accept that you loved me the way you did." I stayed silent, just watching her. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to hear that she had changed, but the other part of me, the stronger part, reminded me that I had been down this road before. I had heard these promises, these apologies, only to be left with empty words. "I'm sorry for everything," she continued, her voice thick with emotion. "I pushed you away because I was scared. I was scared that you would see me for who I really am and not love me anymore. I was scared of losing control." Her vulnerability was raw, and for a split second I felt the old stirrings of compassion. But I quickly reminded myself why I was here. I wasn't going to fall for her act again, not this time. "I don't need your apology, Camille," I said, my voice steady. "What I need is for you to understand that it's too late. I've moved on. I've spent too long giving everything to someone who couldn't appreciate it." She shook her head, her lips trembling. "No, Ethan, please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I'm asking you to forgive me. I've changed. I'm not the same person who hurt you before." I stared at her, feeling the old wounds reopen, but knowing deep down that this was not about me anymore. It wasn't about whether I forgave her. It was about whether I could forgive myself for letting her into my life in the first place. "You've always wanted me to be the person you thought I could be," I said, my voice quieter now but full of conviction. "But the truth is, Camille, you were never the person I thought you were either. You've been playing this game with me for years. You've made me believe that I was the one who needed to change, that I wasn't enough. But I see it now. You didn't love me, Camille. You loved the idea of me. You loved the version of me that would always fight for you, that would always let you walk all over him because I thought I could fix us." Her face crumpled at my words, but I wasn't finished. "Not yet. I'm done fighting for a relationship that was never real. I'm done sacrificing who I am to please someone who will never truly see me," I said, standing up straighter, my words gaining strength. "I don't want your apologies. I don't want your promises. What I want is for you to understand that I don't need you anymore." The silence between us stretched on for a few moments, and for the first time I saw Camille for who she really was. She wasn't the perfect woman I had tried so desperately to hold on to. She wasn't the woman I had loved. She was someone who had only ever taken from me and had never given anything in return. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said quietly, her voice thick with regret. "I don't expect you to want me back, but I want you to know that I will always regret what I did to you." I felt no satisfaction in hearing those words. Camille's regret didn't change what had happened. It didn't change the fact that she had taken something precious from me, my time, my heart, my trust, and had given nothing in return. I nodded once coldly before walking toward the door. "Goodbye, Camille." She didn't try to stop me as I opened the door and stepped out of her reach. I closed it softly behind me, the finality of it settling in like a weight off my chest. It wasn't long before Camille's voice started to creep back into my thoughts. At first it was easy to ignore her attempts to reach out. Her texts, her calls, they came sporadically, each one more desperate than the last. I had blocked her number, but I knew she was using other ways to get through. Her emails, random messages on social media. I couldn't escape it even though I tried. But then something changed. One night as I was sitting alone at home, I saw a message from her pop up on my phone. Ethan, I know you're angry, but I can't let you go without one last chance. Please meet me, just to talk. It was different. There was no pressure this time, no drama, just an invitation for a conversation. And it was that simplicity that made me pause. I didn't respond immediately. I sat there thinking about it for a long time. It felt like an itch I couldn't scratch, a temptation I wasn't sure I could resist. After everything we had been through, why would I even entertain the idea of meeting her again? Yet the thought lingered. What if she had changed? I knew the answer. I didn't want to know, but a part of me couldn't let it go. After everything, could I ever trust her again? Was I just curious, or was I still holding on to a dream that wasn't even mine anymore? The next day, I met Camille. We sat in a small cafe that we used to frequent. The place was quiet, almost too quiet, and the familiarity of it all hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't been back here since the last time we had come together, the time before everything had fallen apart. Camille was waiting for me when I arrived. She looked different. Gone was the confident woman who once held all the power in our relationship. She looked vulnerable, tired, even fragile. But there was a fire in her eyes, something I hadn't seen before, something honest. I sat down across from her, not sure what to expect. She had asked for this meeting, and for once it felt like the tables had turned. For once I wasn't the one begging for her attention. I know this probably seems crazy, she said, breaking the silence, but I couldn't just let things end like that. I couldn't let you think that I didn't care even after everything. I studied her face, her body language. She wasn't playing the same games anymore. There were no defensive walls, no manipulative tactics, just a woman who seemed genuinely remorseful. For the first time in a long time, I felt a pang of sympathy. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I could see the change in her, or at least I thought I could. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she continued, but I want you to know that I'm trying to change. I've been working on myself. I've seen a therapist, and I've been focusing on understanding why I did the things I did, why I kept pushing you away. I was so afraid, Ethan. Afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of losing control. I am sorry. It was the apology I'd been waiting for, the one I thought I needed to hear. But now that it was in front of me, I wasn't sure how to feel. It was genuine, yes. But was it enough? I don't know what to say to that, I replied honestly. You can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal, Camille. We can't just erase what happened. She nodded, looking down at her hands, and for a moment it seemed like the old familiar sadness crept back into her eyes. I don't expect things to go back to normal. I'm not asking for that. I just wanted to be honest with you. I wanted to show you that I'm not the person I was. I sat back, processing her words. Camille wasn't asking for forgiveness, not outright, but the honesty in her voice made me question everything. Could I trust her again? Could I allow myself to believe that this was the woman I had fallen in love with, or was I just seeing what I wanted to see? I'm not the same person either, I said, my voice steady. I've changed too, but I've also learned something important through all of this. I've learned that I don't need you, Camille. I don't need your apology. I've spent so much of my life thinking I wasn't enough, that I needed to prove myself to you, but I don't. Not anymore. Her expression softened, but there was no pleading in her eyes, no desperation, just a quiet acknowledgement that what I was saying was true. I've spent so much time trying to make things right with you, I continued, but the truth is, Camille, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep putting myself in a position where I'm waiting for you to change. I need to keep moving forward. She looked down, biting her lip, but then she looked back up at me with a level of understanding that took me by surprise. I get it, she whispered. I never should have held you back. For a long while, we sat in silence. The weight of the conversation hung in the air, neither of us moving, neither of us speaking. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it was heavy. It was the weight of everything that had come before, and everything that was left unsaid. Finally, I stood up. I think this is where we leave it, Camille. Her eyes met mine one last time, and she nodded slowly. I understand. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't say anything else. I turned and walked away, my heart still unsure, but my mind clearer than it had ever been. Camille had apologized. She had owned up to her mistakes. But that didn't mean I had to take her back. That didn't mean I had to go back to the person I had been before. This time I was walking away for good, and for the first time in a long time I felt the weight of the past finally start to lift off my shoulders. I walked away from Camille, and for the first time in a long time I wasn't looking back. She had finally realized what I'd been telling her all along, that her love, her promises were never enough. But as I left that cafe, I didn't feel victorious. There was no gloating, no sense of triumph, just relief. Finally, I could breathe again. The emotional toll had been exhausting, but now I was free. Free from the weight of trying to win her over, free from the years of second-guessing myself, wondering if I was enough. And in that freedom, I realized something else. I was stronger than I'd ever given myself credit for. In the days that followed, I threw myself into work even more. I wasn't running away from the past, I had already done that. But now, I could channel my energy into something that mattered. I didn't have to hide parts of myself for anyone anymore. I didn't have to shrink to make someone else feel comfortable. I could be me without apology. It was in this newfound clarity that I started to see the power shift the real shift. It wasn't just about Camille anymore. It was about me, about my control. I had been the one giving up control for years, allowing her to dictate the terms of our relationship, of my happiness. But I had taken it back, and for the first time in my life, I understood what true independence felt like. A week later, Camille reached out to me again. I had been expecting it, and yet when the message flashed across my screen, I felt a mix of emotions. This time, there was no begging, no tearful confession, just a simple, straightforward message. Ethan, I know I've said a lot of things to you, and I know I've hurt you, but I want you to know that I'm not trying to win you back anymore. I just need you to know that I'm sorry for everything. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for you to understand. For a moment, I stared at the screen. Was it closure? Was it some kind of final offering of peace? I didn't know. But it didn't matter. The power had shifted. I didn't need her apology to feel validated anymore. I was already whole, already enough. It wasn't about her redemption. It was about my own journey, and that was the one I needed to focus on. I didn't respond to her message, not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to say. There was nothing more to give to that relationship. The chapter with Camille was closed, and then, as if by fate, I got a call from one of my old friends, Alex. We had lost touch after everything with Camille, but Alex had always been there for me when I needed him the most. Ethan, Alex said, his voice full of energy. I've been hearing a lot about you lately. People are noticing the changes. You're killing it at work, man. I couldn't help but laugh. It's been a grind, but I'm getting there. I'm glad to hear that, Alex said. But you know what? I think it's time for you to do something for you. I've got an idea. You need a break, a fresh start. Why don't you come with me on a trip a weekend away? No work, no distractions. Just you, me, and some time to clear your head. The invitation was tempting. I'd been so focused on getting my life back together, on working through the pain, that I hadn't realized how much I needed to step away from everything. Camille, the business, the constant noise of life. It was time for me to reconnect with who I really was without any outside pressure. I agreed to the trip. It was a short getaway, but it was exactly what I needed. No expectations, no obligations, just a chance to breathe again, to feel like I was more than the sum of my past mistakes. I spent the weekend hiking in the mountains, getting lost in the silence of nature. Alex and I laughed, shared stories, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was truly present. I wasn't thinking about Camille. I wasn't even thinking about the future. I was simply enjoying the moment. When I returned from the trip, something had changed in me. I wasn't the same person who had walked away from Camille all those weeks ago. I was stronger, more confident, and I had a deeper understanding of what it meant to take care of myself, to put myself first. I realized that I didn't need anyone else to complete me. I was already whole. Camille reached out one more time, and this time I knew exactly what to do. I picked up the phone, but instead of hearing her tearful voice, I simply said, I think we've both moved on, Camille. I hope you find the peace you're looking for. She didn't respond, and that was it, the final goodbye. And I wasn't sad, I wasn't angry, I was free. The power had truly shifted, not just between us, but within myself. I had reclaimed my life, my happiness, my worth, and in that I found something greater than love. I found peace. It had been a few weeks since I had made the decision to close the door on Camille. I thought the silence would be easier to handle than it was. I had convinced myself that I was stronger, that I was over it, but there was still this lingering feeling, a nagging sense that Camille wasn't truly gone from my life. She had been such a constant presence, a force that had shaped so many of my decisions, my actions. How could I just let her slip away without any final resolution? I didn't have to wait long for that resolution to come. One evening, just as I was winding down after a long day, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut told me it was her. It was a feeling I hadn't had in a long time, the instinct that she was still out there, still trying to get my attention. I answered the call, my heart pounding in my chest. Camille's voice came through thick with emotion. I know I don't have the right to ask you this, but I need you to hear me out. I've been thinking about everything, about us, and I know I've messed up, but I'm asking you for one more chance. Just one more. I paused, holding my breath, trying to steady myself. I had heard this before, hadn't I, over and over again. The same promises, the same apologies, all wrapped up in the same emotional manipulation. But something in her voice, something different this time, made me hesitate. I don't need your apologies anymore, Camille, I replied, my voice firm. I've made my decision. I've moved on. I know you have, she said quietly, and that's what hurts the most. But I can't let you go like this, Ethan. I can't keep pretending like everything is fine. I'm not the same person I was when I left. I've been seeing a therapist, I've been working on myself, and I've realized that everything I did to you, I did because I was scared. I didn't know how to love you properly, and I pushed you away because I couldn't deal with my own insecurities. The old part of me wanted to reach out to comfort her, to be the person I had always been for her, but I had to stop myself. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. She was coming to me now, not with love, but with guilt and desperation. I couldn't be the one to carry that burden for her. Camille, this isn't about me forgiving you, I said, my voice steady. This is about me understanding that you will never be the person I need you to be, and I've come to terms with that. I've accepted it. She went quiet on the other end, and for a moment I thought she was going to hang up, but then she spoke, her voice trembling. I can't live with the thought of you hating me, Ethan. I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I loved you in my own way. I just didn't know how to show it. Please don't hate me. It wasn't about hate. I didn't hate Camille. I couldn't. What I felt was deeper resentment, yes. But more than that, I felt a deep sadness. Sadness that I had allowed myself to fall into a cycle with someone who could never truly love me the way I needed. And even now, as she begged for my forgiveness, I realized that nothing would ever change that. I don't hate you, Camille, I said, my voice softer now. But I can't keep carrying your guilt. I can't keep making myself feel responsible for your mistakes. You need to find your own peace. There was a long silence, and for a brief moment I thought she had hung up. But then I heard her voice again, weaker this time, like she had given up. I understand. I just thought maybe after all this time there could be a chance for us. I felt a pang of sadness, not for her, but for the version of me that had believed in the fantasy of us. That part of me had died, and I wasn't going back. I'm sorry, Camille. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that I deserve more than what you could give me. I deserve someone who will love me without hesitation. I'm not that person for you, and you're not that person for me. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle between us. Goodbye, Camille. I hung up the phone, the finality of it sinking in. The call had been everything I needed it to be closure. I didn't feel anger or bitterness anymore. I just felt tired of fighting for someone who had never fought for me in return, tired of trying to fix something that had been broken long before I had even realized it. As I set the phone down, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was over, and this time it was for good. In the days that followed, Camille's words echoed in my mind, but the pain was fading. I had freed myself from the shackles of my past, and now it was time to step into the future, one where I wasn't defined by anyone else's love or guilt. The future was mine, and I was ready to take it. I wasn't the man I used to be, the one who craved validation, the one who would have given up everything for a second chance at love. Now I was the man who knew his worth, the man who didn't need anyone else to complete him. And for the first time, I felt truly free. The days after I hung up on Camille felt strangely quiet, the kind of quiet that settles into the spaces you didn't even know were there, like the silence after a storm. There was a calmness to it, but it was a stillness that felt more like an absence than peace. For weeks I'd been living in a world of decisions, of trying to make sense of the chaos that had been my relationship with Camille. But now, I was faced with the ultimate decision. What comes next? I had spent so much time focused on her, on us, that I had neglected what was waiting for me on the other side of it all, my future. And for the first time, I felt completely free to make that decision. I thought I had moved on, but part of me was still lingering in the past, still questioning if there was more I could have done more. I could have changed. Did I give up too easily? What if Camille had truly changed? What if the love we once had could be rebuilt? But as I sat alone in my apartment, the truth finally hit me with the clarity of a thunderclap. I couldn't keep asking myself these questions. I couldn't keep wondering about what could have been. It didn't matter anymore. I was done. The phone call from Camille was the last straw, the final test. I had already made up my mind, but her desperate attempt to reach out to pull me back into her world made it crystal clear. She hadn't changed. She wasn't sorry for the right reasons. She was sorry because she had lost control. And I wasn't going to be part of that cycle anymore. I wasn't the man who begged for love anymore. I wasn't the man who waited for someone to finally see his worth. I had seen mine, and I wasn't going to settle for anything less than someone who saw me for who I was, someone who valued me. The decision I had to make wasn't about Camille anymore. It wasn't even about the relationship we had. It was about me. I had spent too long letting someone else's actions dictate how I felt about myself. I had let Camille's words, her actions, her rejection define my self-worth. I had let the belief that I wasn't enough seep into my bones and change who I was at my core. But that wasn't me. Not anymore. As I sat at my desk late one night looking over business plans, I realized how much I had let slip by while I was focused on Camille. The opportunities I had passed up, the potential I had squandered. I was on the verge of something big in my career, something I had worked for, something that had nothing to do with the past and everything to do with my future. And for the first time, I realized that my future was mine alone. It wasn't something I had to share with anyone who didn't value it. I made a choice that night, a final decision. I wasn't going to wait for Camille to change for her to see the mistakes she had made. I wasn't going to keep holding on to something that had already fallen apart. I was going to move forward. The next few weeks passed quickly, and I threw myself into my work with everything I had. I began new projects, expanded my business, and reconnected with friends I had lost touch with. The freedom was intoxicating. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. I wasn't trying to earn someone's love. I was simply living for myself. I went on dates, but nothing serious. I was in no rush to find someone to replace Camille. In fact, I wasn't looking for anyone at all. But the simple act of being able to enjoy myself without the pressure of a relationship was liberating. I could finally breathe without worrying about someone else's expectations. But just when I thought I had reached the final chapter of my story with Camille, she appeared again. This time she didn't call. This time she showed up at my door. I wasn't surprised to see her. Part of me had known this was coming, but I wasn't prepared for the look on her face, guilt, regret, and a desperation I hadn't seen before. She was standing there in front of me, unsure of what to say, unsure of whether she even had the right to say anything at all. "Ethan, please," she said, her voice cracking. "I know I've messed up. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I can't move on knowing you think I never cared. I never meant to hurt you like this." I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel that familiar ache in my chest. There was no longing, no hope, just a quiet, undeniable certainty. "You don't get it, do you, Camille?" I said softly. "This isn't about forgiveness anymore. It's about me moving on. It's about me finally taking control of my own life, and I'm not going to let you come back into it and derail everything I've worked for." Her eyes filled with tears, but I stood firm. I wasn't angry, but I wasn't going to let her back into my life. Not now, not ever. I've moved on, Camille, and I think it's time you did too. For the first time, I watched Camille leave, and as I closed the door behind her, I realized something powerful. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was free. Camille left, and for the first time in months, I felt peace. There was no bitterness in my heart, no gnawing desire for vengeance. Instead, I felt lighter, like I had just shed a weight that had been pressing down on me for far too long. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about taking back what I had lost in the years of struggling with her manipulations, her games, and her lies. I realized now that the best form of revenge was never a grand dramatic act. It was simply living well. It was succeeding, thriving, and making sure that I wasn't defined by her, by our past, or by the mistakes we both made. It was about showing Camille and everyone else that I was more than just the man who had once been tied to her. I was me, and I had everything I needed to make it without her. As the weeks passed, my life started to shift in ways I never expected. I had worked hard to build my business, but now, with the freedom from the emotional baggage that Camille had carried with her, I was able to see things clearly. I knew exactly what I wanted, no more compromising for someone else's sake, no more playing by anyone else's rules. I became a force in my industry. I started getting recognition from people who once ignored me, people who had never seen my potential, because they were too busy focusing on my relationship drama. I had spent so much time trying to win people over, trying to impress them, trying to make them see what I could offer. But now, I wasn't chasing anything. It all came to me naturally. But the most satisfying part of all this wasn't the career success. It wasn't the praise or the recognition. It wasn't even the people who now saw me in a new light. No, the most satisfying part of all of this was Camille. I knew she was watching. I knew that somehow, someway she could see what was happening in my life, and it would sting. It would hurt to see me thriving without her, to see me becoming someone she could never have. It wasn't about making her regret leaving me. It wasn't about proving anything to her. It was about proving it to myself. I didn't need her. I never had. One evening, as I sat at my desk late into the night, something strange happened. I received a message from an unknown number. My stomach dropped, but I opened it anyway. It was from Camille. "Ethan, I've been watching everything from the sidelines, and I can't tell you how much it hurts to see you succeeding without me. I know I don't deserve a place in your life anymore, but I can't stop thinking about the mistakes I made. I know I was wrong, and I don't expect you to take me back, but I need you to know that I am truly sorry." At first I stared at the screen, reading her message over and over again. There was no anger, no satisfaction in it, just a deep sense of closure. I didn't need her apology anymore. It didn't matter. She had apologized, but the words no longer carried any weight. I took a deep breath and simply typed back, "You don't have to apologize, Camille. I've moved on, and I'm doing just fine." I hit send. The next day, I woke up to a notification that sent a surge of adrenaline through me. It wasn't just Camille's message. No, this was something bigger. It was an email from a potential business partner, someone I had been chasing for months. Someone who had ignored my calls, brushed off my emails, and never took me seriously. But now, things were different. My hard work had finally paid off. This was the opportunity I had been waiting for. I couldn't help but smile as I read the email. The weight of everything I had been through in the past months finally hitting me. It wasn't just about getting the deal, it was about how far I had come, about how much I had achieved on my own without anyone's help, without Camille. That night, I went out to celebrate with friends. It wasn't a victory celebration over Camille or the past, it was a celebration of me, of my future, of the man I had become after everything, after all the pain, the lessons, the mistakes. I wasn't who I used to be, and I was proud of that. As we raised our glasses, I looked around at the people who had always had my back, the ones who never doubted me, never judged me, and for the first time in a long time I realized that these were the people who truly mattered, not Camille, not the version of me that had been tied to her. These people saw the real me, the one who didn't need anyone to complete him. The next few weeks were filled with progress and growth. My business boomed, new opportunities arose, and for the first time I felt the full weight of my own potential. I was free from the past, free from the pain, free from the constant need to prove myself to someone who would never see me for who I truly was. And in the back of my mind, I knew that Camille was watching. She was seeing the man I had become, the man I was always meant to be, the one she had never truly appreciated, and that was the sweetest revenge. It's been a few months since Camille last reached out, and I haven't heard from her since. I've been so focused on my future that I barely remember what it felt like to be stuck in the emotional labyrinth we had created together. The tangled web of apologies, promises, and heartbreak has faded into the background, and now I can see it for what it was, a chapter in my life that was meant to teach me something, but nothing more. I've been moving forward, gaining momentum in my work, finding peace in my personal life. I'm doing well, better than I ever thought possible. The chains that once held me back, fear, self-doubt, and Camille, are no longer part of my story. They were never really mine to begin with. I was the one who had given them power, and now I see clearly, the power has always been mine. I've started seeing someone new. Her name is Sarah, and she's nothing like Camille. She doesn't try to fix me, she doesn't ask me to change, and most importantly, she doesn't demand that I give up my identity just to be loved. There's no game, no manipulation, just two people learning each other, growing together. It's refreshing, really. And every day I find myself more grateful for the simple, healthy love we share. It's not perfect, but it's real. And it's the kind of love I always deserved. In the midst of all this, I received an unexpected email from a mutual acquaintance, someone I had known through Camille. The email was simple, straightforward, a business opportunity. But it wasn't just any opportunity. It was a chance to expand my business on a larger scale, to take things to the next level. It wasn't just a professional win, it was a personal one too. A reminder that I didn't need to rely on anyone else's approval to achieve success. I had built my success from the ground up, and now I was reaping the rewards. As I stared at the email, I realized something important. Camille had been a part of my story, but she would no longer define it. And for the first time, I felt truly grateful for what I had learned. She had been my lesson in love and loss, but she wasn't my final chapter. I think back on all the moments with Camille, the highs and the lows, and I realize now that I don't need to hold on to the pain anymore. The feelings of betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger, it was all part of a process, a painful but necessary process. It wasn't easy, it wasn't quick, but now I see that all of it has led me to this moment of clarity, of strength. There was a time when I thought I needed Camille to complete me. There was a time when I thought I needed her approval, her love, her acceptance. But the truth is, I never needed her. What I needed was myself. I needed to learn how to love and value myself before I could ever expect someone else to do the same. The resolution isn't in the revenge I imagined. It's not in some dramatic confrontation or in making her feel the way I did. The real resolution is in letting go, finally letting go, and finding peace within myself. It's in the freedom to move forward, to take charge of my life without constantly looking back. Camille has had her chance to make things right, and while I wish her well, I no longer need her to be a part of my future. My future is mine to shape, and as I look ahead, I know that the best is yet to come. The hardest lessons have been learned, and now I'm ready to build something new, something lasting. As I sit here reflecting on everything that has happened, I realize that the true victory was never in revenge. It was in the process of becoming stronger, wiser, and more certain of who I am. And for the first time in my life, I'm not looking back. I'm not questioning my choices. I'm not doubting myself. I am exactly who I am supposed to be. If you've enjoyed this journey, I want to hear from you. What would you have done differently? Would you forgive or take revenge? Comment below and share your thoughts with me. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Remember, the best revenge is living well.